Hey, Anton. Welcome back to week two. I'm really excited about the property that we're going to talk about today. How are you?
I'm good. Apologize in advance. Got a little bit of construction going on here, so you may hear an occasional bang. Apologize for that in advance.
No, of course. So tell us the start of another deal.
So every real estate transaction has stories behind it, and this property in Aurora, Colorado, is no exception, but has a couple of interesting stories. It was a seller, a multi-generational family was a seller, and the buyer that couldn't purchase a home was also a multi-generational family. It's an interesting piece of fact that goes along with it.
Absolutely. So that's kind of crazy, like to help people in similar situations on both sides, at least with the multi-generational, which I think is probably fairly unusual in the United States in general. But on the seller side, how did you get connected to the seller? What was all of that like?
So the seller was a family that was a child and adult child with a elderly parent. They were living in it was a town home. They were unfortunately tens of thousands of dollars in arrears on their mortgage, and by the time we got down to the end, it was 4 days before their home was going to go to literally go to auction on the courthouse steps. A realtor and another investor contact reached out to us about the situation and the challenge that they were in. Not only were they facing obviously the giant hit of foreclosure, they didn't have the money available obviously to catch that up, but they didn't even have the money they needed to move out of this property. So they were 4 days away from the property being sold and had no money or ability to move to somewhere else. They were 4 days away from being homeless.
Absolutely. And that's such a valid point that I think a lot of people don't understand, is that when people lose their home to foreclosure, or they do, I saw recently that someone did a deed in lieu with the mortgage company, that they don't get any funds to move, and it costs money to be able to move. And I remember this specific deal because it was actually winter too. And because it was really cold, and there was, the seller was concerned about her heat and all of this stuff going on. She just had all of these pressures that you guys definitely helped her out with. So, they are about to lose their home to foreclosure. You're able to stop it 4 days prior to. What was that transition between the seller and the buyer? Like, how did you find your buyer?
So the buyer, we closed on the property, helped them, obviously gave the seller the funds that they needed to move, brought an investor in to obviously help fund the moving expenses, and also to pay the public trustee in the state of Colorado, which is how you stop a foreclosure action. So we took that. We did a little bit of cleanup, in the property to make sure that it would be, in a good place for a buyer. And then we utilized, the Facebook Marketplace and Facebook advertising. We, showed the property to a number of potential buyers. And then we ended up finding a fit with a the family that was, to a married couple with their elderly parents, one parent from each side. So it's a truly mixed, multi-generational family. They had recently, relocated to Colorado to consolidate because the parents needed more care than they were able to provide at a distance. But their credit and transition situation meant that they weren't able to buy a home traditionally and weren't going to be able to get a property that was a good fit for this family of 4 adults. So this became creative financing and our ability to provide seller financing without a bank to them was a solution that got them into a property at a reasonable cost that they simply would not have had. They would be living in a small apartment or something of that nature, which is obviously not anywhere near as good as the opportunity they have here.
Absolutely. Well, and 4 adults living in an apartment can become close quarters. And so now, they have this space and they have an opportunity, like you said, that sometimes when you don't get to pick the timeline that you're moving, and obviously they kind of face this timeline that they had to move because their parents needed them now. And it caused unexpected financial stresses. I think if you were going to plan out buying a house, you'd save and you would make sure your debt is low and all of the things, all of the boxes are marked, to do that in the next few years. And sometimes life doesn't provide you that opportunity. So it's very
absolutely. And in this circumstance, obviously, or someone needs to make a down payment of some sort on even in a creative transaction, but they didn't have they weren't going to be able to have as quickly as they needed the down payment. It was going to be another couple of months before they had the full amount of what we were needing to make their monthly payment and long-term payment work for them buying the property. So what we ended up doing is agreeing to financing on the down payment in addition to the financing on the underlying property. So rather than them having to wait a couple of months and stay in an apartment, stay in an extended stay, or whatever that might be that you'd need to do if you were buying traditionally, we were able to truly customize to understand exactly the situation, understand exactly the dollars that were available, now, a month from now, for the next, for the duration of their purchase, and customize a solution that got them into a home right away.
That's incredible. Like the ability for you to get creative, even with the down payment, still removes all of the obstacles in order for them to get in. Because I know we talked about this in the previous video, but you make sure that they qualify. So it's not that, you're just lending to anybody. Like financially, they qualify. You're just getting a little creative because of the unexpected move and the inability that they had to plan going into this.
Well, ultimately, yeah, that's absolutely true, that they, need to be able to afford it. I mean, it's a lose-lose situation for that buyer and for us. If they can't pay, they can't afford it. But affording something doesn't look the same in every situation. It's, so customizing, you can afford it if it's structured this way. If I can do the payments in this structure, we can look at we can understand their specific situation and see what they can afford in their situation if we put the right boxes in the right places. Obviously it doesn't serve anyone if we look at the situation and setting someone up to fail doesn't help them. It sets them back. And we want to be moving people forward in their lives, not creating new uncertainties and new challenges for them. As I noted, that's a lose-lose.
Absolutely. Very awesome. So you're able to help your seller not go into foreclosure. You were able to ensure that the buyers were able to buy a house probably much sooner than they probably even expected. It was probably a completely unexpected gift for them. And you had briefly mentioned that you used an investing partner to cover the cost and cleanup fees between the seller and the buyer. And so for this transaction, is your investing partner, do they stay in it with you long term? Did you pay them back right away? How is this one structured? Because I know each of them are a little different.
So in this case, the investor was a true co-investor in the project. And so they made a financial co-investment with us, and they own a portion of the equity of the property and note that we hold on the property. They have the opportunity to be a real estate investor without the hassle and challenges of being a day-to-day real estate investor. A lot of people want to invest in real estate, but there's challenges and hassles that come with it, and people are busy. They don't have time to add a whole nother task to their plates, but they still want to be able to invest in this asset class. And we're able to give a turnkey solution that what I like to call gives them mailbox money every month. All they have to think about is walking to the mailbox and opening the envelope.
What's really nice is that this form of investing partnership is a little nicer because on top of the mailbox money, they are actually getting equity. So eventually your buyers are going to refinance the property. They're going to pay you off, and there's going to be that extra split of equity right there. And your long-term partner is going to be able to share that. So they not only get the, monthly payments, but they also get that equity split. And that's really nice.
And a part of having that equity, and that it is a secured investment. It is tied to a specific property and the equity in this specific property. So you're getting it's a return on a secured asset, as opposed to many similarly performing investments don't have an asset behind them. It's only whatever the business or the financial instrument is. There's no hard asset behind it.
That's so amazing. A lot of times you'll see a lot of people that tried investing, and like you said, we kind of call them tired landlords, but people that are just over dealing with the day-to-day of properties. And I think one of the places that your team really succeeds is that the relationship that you maintain with your sellers and your buyers and everybody. There's a lot of output in having those positive relationships so that you can successfully do these types of investments and help so many people. And so what's really cool, I think, for your partners is that they get to come along for the ride. They get all the benefit of all of the work that you put into creating and maintaining those relationships, but they don't actually have to do it themselves.
Absolutely. The beginning and end of real estate transactions is important, but we will hold these investments for 10, 20, 30, even 40 years in some circumstances. And asset management, the asset management piece of it is huge. And that's not just asset management in terms of the physical plant and making sure it's insured and paid. It's also working with all the other stakeholders that are involved. Like, as you noted, the original seller, creative transaction, they're still involved in the long run because the note is in their name. Obviously, then we've got buyers that we're working with, and maintaining all of those relationships so that, you know, when in the event that, you know, there is a bit of a challenge with the asset, that we're we're finding out about it right away so that it can be, you know, solved before it's a problem. B, we have the knowledge and experience for the do's and don'ts. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, and we know the pieces that are the most likely to cause challenges. And number 3, that, you know, we have the relationships with all the parties involved so that everyone will be on the same team to solve a problem if there is a problem.
Absolutely. That's amazing. Is there anything else about this property, or this, it's not even the property, you kind of like worked with 2 different families. So is there anything that you were struck with, or that you really kind of just took away? I know that this transaction was one of your earlier ones in Colorado. So is there any like lessons learned you had on this one, or takeaways?
That, you know, relationships are critical. And there's another relationship that we talked about briefly, is with the agent and the wholesaler that were involved in pulling us into the transaction originally. That's another set of, you know, relationships that we build and foster. And in fact, you know, just today, I was having a conversation with one of those, with that wholesaler, with another, you know, family that's having challenges. In fact, in the same city in Colorado, and, you know, we're in the process of going under contract to help that family get out of their home and move on to their next phase. So that's, you know, it's a web of good relationships that, by doing fair and ethical business with all of the parties that are involved, which is a huge commitment for us, it shows that, you know, that's, you know, bearing fruit, right? In, you know, seeing that, you know, literally less than an hour ago, I was on the phone working with the details of that to, you know, try and get a family, you know, out of their situation and into a new place, you know, by Christmas, as we sit here in early December. And that's another thing that comes into this, is creative transactions can often move very, very quickly. If obviously there can be challenges that slow things down, but typically much faster than a traditional real estate transaction, both in terms of, you know, a seller and a buyer. That doesn't mean that, you know, corners are cut. All of the critical paperwork to secure everyone is still done. All of the neutral third parties and due diligence and security that's needed for the transaction itself and for the long term is all done. But we have the knowledge, experience, and partners to successfully complete those transactions very, very quickly.
And the repetition of success, you know, as each process goes through, everyone that you buy from a seller and everyone you sell to a buyer, you're perfecting and tweaking that process until it's just kind of a smooth machine. I know our servicing agent, probably expects an email from us every day. Like those resources and those connections and that process just makes it to where you're able to help people with, like, that's a crazy short time frame, with the holiday, you're looking at, less than 3 weeks. And like, for you to genuinely, as long as, everyone works and there's no like crazy hiccups, to be able to accomplish that mission requires some skill and expertise in making sure that all of that happens. And so it's really incredible that as you grow and as you obtain these properties and you find buyers, that you're really kind of perfecting that system.
Yeah, the systems continue to grow, and like anything, you learn more with each passing day, with each passing transaction. And as that continues to grow going forward, it also benefits every transaction and every situation that we're still involved in, because a traditional real estate transaction, everyone shows up at the table and papers pushed across, checks are pushed across, and signatures happen, and everyone bids themselves goodbye and walks out the door, and probably never talks to each other ever again. Whereas in these transactions, we're going to continue working together for decades in many cases. And so the transaction, the improvements that we have to our processes today are benefiting the person we're still involved with in a transaction, from a year ago or 5 years, or however long ago a transaction was. They grow with us. They benefit from everything that we learn how to do better and better and better.
Absolutely. Well, Anton, thank you so much for giving us your time today. I look forward to talking to you next week. Is there anything else you wanted to say about this very cool property?
No, it's I just want to thank you for the conversation and the time. And there's contact information for both of us in the screen below. Anton C. Hartman on all the platforms here on YouTube, Instagram, etc., and also the same for Amanda. So thank you, and look forward to talking about another property next week.
Absolutely.